Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. I'm Stu Hardy, joined again by Jeff and by Ed. Fellas, thank you for joining me. We didn't record last week because of the Oceania Under 20s men's championship, and we had one game that we were able to go, but by the time we would have released the episode, the second game would have happened and we would be behind the time. So we now have two games to talk about. Because I think we can say it's a very successful tournament for Canada, all things considered. But I am going to start off with the negative side, if we want to call that, and talk about the Fiji game because I think everyone going into it said that this was going to be like the major test. This is going to be like it's not so much looking to win, more like damage control. Because boy, did they give a lot of damage in the opening half. That was not fun to watch. Or, well, I say watch. RugbyPass.tv wasn't really firing on all cylinders for this tournament, but getting that result from Rugby Canada's social media, that was just uh, that you could tell it was going to be a long, long day in the office for Canada. But all things considered, they definitely pulled it all together for the second half, outscored Fiji as well, but ultimately the damage had been done. The full-time score from that game was a rout of Fiji 56, Canada 24. We had Josh McIndoe getting the only try of the first half for Canada, and then we had in the second half Austin Allen, Dara Doyle, and Morgan Donato going over. Liam Kinghorn getting out of the four conversions, but ultimately it was pretty much wrapped up, probably by the first 30 minutes as opposed to the first 40. Um, but I'll pass it to you, Jeff, first. What did you make of this game?
Well, it was a very disappointing start. It really was. And I think they gave up 21 points by the 20-minute mark,
Yeah.
thereabouts. And well, you've said it all too. Like it was over by halftime. Uh, I only was able to watch the highlights, but seeing some pushback by Canada in the second half was encouraging. So it was also a mental test. They didn't quit. They didn't get worse on D in the second half. They tried to mitigate the damage, I guess is the way to put it. So that was better. Mhm.
I'll throw it to you now, Ed, because we were talking last week about what's his name? Josh um McIndoe being this stalwart player, currently playing in New Zealand, able to have the versatility at both 10 and center where he had currently been playing. Um, yeah, he obviously got the first try for Canada, um, but he's definitely been building on. He's got to be someone that the senior team coaches got to be keeping an eye out for. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I think a try in and amongst a very good tournament for him. He had a good game against Samoa, and then if you go back and look at his highlights, he looks to be a high quality, a robust, strong, a good runner, intelligent player at 10 or 12. So that's really encouraging to see. And then Morgan Donato also has been doing well on the seven scene and getting his name on the board with the U20s as well. I think sort of my takeaway from the overall tournament for this Oceania Rugby tournament for Canada and for everybody, I think, is the structures that are set up below each of these different countries, right? So, when you talk about Samoa and Tonga, if you go in there and look at their rugby pathways, the structures that they've got set up, they've had lots of disruption over the last few years, scandals, all sorts of corruption allegations, things like that that have really taken a toll on those two countries. Fiji, on the other hand, you've seen the introduction of the Ndrua in Super Rugby. You see their players being picked up all around the world by different clubs in France, especially. So they seem to be strengthening their pathways quite well, where Samoa and Tonga don't. This is the challenge for Canada now. Canada really should be beating Samoa and Tonga, and to their credit, they've done that in this tournament. So they put themselves where they should be in terms of their development there. The key now is to try and catch up to Fiji and Rugby Canada needs to get the pathways right so that Canada is consistently competitive in this tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of beating Tonga, we'll now move on to the more joyous game, I think, from a Canadian perspective, which is the final game of the tournament for Canada, which was against Tonga. As you mentioned, the things haven't been going well for Samoa or Tonga, especially from like the national men's team perspective. Although that said, these guys somehow can still qualify for the World Cup, while Canada hasn't. But we'll get to that by the end of the year. And but in this under 20s competition, in it's been very entertaining. I've got to say that, even from like a neutral kind of perspective. Um, but immediately coming into this game, I think this was a game that the Canadians knew that they could win, especially after such a close score between Samoa and Tonga last week. In the second round, I should say. And then you, and then starts off absolutely amazingly, and a good getaway. But then Tonga come back into it. They're keeping Canada humble, I would say. Definitely, we're 4 tries in. It's 10 all each conversions going wide, but then Canada turned the screw, and at halftime they're leading 24-10. Getting Angus Dewar, Morgan Donato, Liam James over for his first of the game. So that is good to see. And especially after the Fijian game, getting back in the driver's seat, getting that confidence back into their playing style, and also just scoring as many points in the first half against Tonga as they did against Fiji in that entire match. So that's a pretty good basis to go off. Then in the second half, yeah, Tonga is still scoring, they're still getting guys over the line, but Canada are just doing it here, there, and everywhere. They're able to score. Then again, Tonga's indiscipline. They picked up, I think, 3 yellow cards across that match, and especially, and by the end they were just down to 13 players, and Canada get that final try of the game. I think that was Liam James's second of the match, and yeah, full-time score 57 to Canada, 27 to Tonga. And I'll come to you on this one because you mentioned about Tonga and Samoa being the teams that Canada should be looking at as beatable, especially going into the future, especially going into potential World Cup qualification games as well. This was a huge positive for Canada, definitely, won't you say?
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting to see some of the names on the scoreboard there. Looking, I think, relatives of other famous Canadian players, the Griffiths family. I know them and the Detroit there. Um, but I think when it comes to the men's, it's an interesting case because when it comes to the World Cup and the actual senior side, Samoa is now going back and picking a lot of players that have either played for other countries before and now are wanting to return to Samoa, or they're picking up players that are playing in divisions all around the world. The French league I mentioned. So the men's team for Samoa and Tonga are likely to be a lot stronger than what they produce through their actual own pathways.
Mm.
Because a lot of those players come out and get developed by other countries, New Zealand, France, all around the world, Australia, all around the world. So it's going to be interesting to see how the senior men's match up against those teams if and when they do make the World Cup. Um, but that then comes back to like if you've got your youth pathways working well, if you've got players coming through who are selected correctly. You've got good scouts all around the country. You've got good coaches, good resources coming through with your youth programs. That's adding to everything that you're producing at that top level as well. So if you can get that working well, which is, the challenge for Rugby Canada, then that's going to add to, what you can produce at the top level.
Yeah, we've seen that it seems to be that very few countries can actually get their pathways together. I mean, we can see places like France and England, Ireland as well, or I should say Leinster more specifically, can get their pathways down pretty solidly. But you then start looking at other places like Tonga, like Samoa, like Canada, who obviously very different issues and circumstances. But something has to be done to get ducks in order, get things lined up. I think this tournament has been a fabulous thing for the Canadian men's under 20s. I mean, we've seen that the women's under 20s, they've got that, they had that friendly tour to Ireland uh, only a few weeks ago. And we've known, like last year, they had that Atlantic Quad tournament between the United States, Canada, Wales, and England, and that hopefully is set to continue as well. So for the men now to have a tournament that they can participate in, hopefully on an annual basis, is going to be a huge thing. Jeff, I know we've talked about a few players in this squad. Has there been any that have stood out for you that maybe could be getting a call up to the senior men's team hopefully later this year?
Well, going on what Ed said about pathways, and my question was waiting for after the Tonga game was for players like McIndoe, Webb, I think Doyle, sorry, DiNardo, where do they go from here? Like, where do they keep developing? I would hope some of them would be on the long list, at least get camp against the national team once that is announced. That could because that should start soon. But also, do they get a cup of coffee maybe in the November tour or in the last chance saloon to qualify for the World Cup? Right. That is my question too, is for those players especially, where do they go from here? And maybe exposing them to the senior camp would be a way to get clubs interested in them too. I mean, McIndoe maybe can go back to New Zealand and hopefully make a Bay of Plenty or try to make Waikato side or even like the junior side. Or he played first five for Canada. Maybe he can try to get to a French academy
Mm.
uh, like that. And Webb is also another highly touted guy. The lock, as I said, Doyle, he could maybe try to get over to one of the clubs in Europe. So, as he said, our pathway is in a sense broken too. There is MLR, but there's no Canadian-based MLR team.
Mm.
So, trying to keep these players that excelled at the U20 playing in the next level and hopefully make the national team in 1, 2, 3 years, that's going to be the key now for Canada.
Here's a question for you guys that you might be able to answer. I know when the Arrows were around, they had at least started or were making connections with New Zealand teams, with a couple of other professional teams around the world. I'm not quite sure what's happened to that connection. Like, is there still a connection between Canadian rugby and these other pro clubs around the world that they could look to try and develop players through?
I
That's a good.
definitely remember there was the Arrows had connections with Melrose Rugby Club in Scotland. They had made a partnership with the Hong Kong Rugby Union
Mhm.
as well. And I believe in their first season, they had a partnership with the Hurricanes in Super
Mm,
Rugby.
that's right.
Um, of course, uh, unfortunately, I don't have the full details of those plans. I just got the press releases like everyone else. And obviously, since the Arrows have sadly folded, that those details may still exist, but probably more as like a personal level or I know that some of the guys that did go to Melrose had phenomenal experiences while they were over there. A club steeped in history, the birthplace of sevens. Um, I believe a couple of players did go to Hong Kong, but I think it was more in terms of a getting guys experience in Hong Kong whilst at the same time they were working for companies that are based in Hong Kong as well. And the Hurricanes, I believe that was only for the Arrows' first season in 2019. So again, it seems to just be personal connections that have continued on there. But yeah, I do agree. Jeff, to go back to your point about pathways, we have heard Rugby Canada looking to build these like high performance centers across the country. In their strategic review, they aim to have four by the end of 2025, which is in about 6 months' time. Um, and planning to have hopefully eight by 2029. Um, and they have said these are available for men's and women's rugby as well, both 15s and sevens. And when that comes about, that's great. But again, they're still in the process of setting it up. There isn't any confirmed locations as of yet. And yeah, I do think that guys in this squad, for example, and if we're including under 20s, the women as well, is not everyone can join a professional unit in Europe or a team along those lines. But they could have opportunities to go to New Zealand, go to Australia, play for some of the semi-pro clubs over there. Get more experience, build connections over there, and sometime and come back, play in either the BC Premier League or the Marshall League here in Ontario, and develop their skills further, keep that Canadian base. But it is a question. But for now, I definitely think like that's the option to go forward. And when this high performance centers are established and we can actually see what those are in action, then we can proceed from there. But second in the tournament, very good, especially when a lot of people were saying how shocked they were that Canada had been able to beat Samoa. So yeah, I think the men's under 20s did very well, and congratulations to all of them. And hopefully, this is the opportunity for them to be scouted by, maybe like MLR academies or clubs in New Zealand, clubs in Australia, um, you know, National League One in England, maybe if anyone has a British passport under their belt. Yeah, just more opportunities to see Canadian players play and develop their skills. We're all for that. Um, and as Jeff mentioned, that there's no Canadian team in MLR, there definitely are Canadian players in MLR as we turn our attention now to the MLR playoffs for 2025. So, all games played, a 16 round tournament played over 17 weeks. We've had a couple of midweek games that, have seemed to have not always gone down well, but it is the nature of the beast. You just got to fit those games in for that time. So let's have a look at the Eastern Conference. The Free Jacks, they secured top of the division. Um, Chicago in second. So we have the following for our playoffs going into the East, which is Chicago versus Old Glory DC, followed by the New England Free Jacks versus the Miami Sharks. Both Chicago and New England finished the season 11 wins, 5 losses, and Old Glory and Miami both on an even split of 8 and 8. So, who are the Canadians we are looking forward to seeing on those teams? And who do we think is going to make it to the Eastern Conference Final? Jeff, I'll throw it to you first.
Canadians, well, I'll be interested to see how many Canadians actually start for the Free Jacks in this one, if they go ahead Canadian heavy or not. I will also be very excited to see O'Leary play Hey, I know he's been playing fullback and he's played very well. And he's probably actually going to be Canada's fly half this summer. So
Mm.
for Free Jacks, there's a lot of Canadians to mention, to be honest. I will be interested to see if like Connor Keys, if Larson get significant game time, if Fryer gets game time too. Who do I think will get back past? I do think the Free Jacks at home should put down the Sharks. For the Hounds, see if they actually start an all Canadian back row. Unlikely. Owaru will probably be on the bench. And hopefully Noah Flesh at 12 will get a lot of game time. Hopefully Kelly at 1 will play a solid 80 minutes. And I think we'll need him this summer and get through that game unscathed. But like the Free Jacks, I think the home team should see it through.
And Ed, who do you have making the conference final for the East?
I'm actually going the other way. I think, I mean, looking at their results here, 11 and 5 versus these teams that are 8 and 8, you would predictably pick the Free Jacks and the Hounds to come out of those. But the Free Jacks, I think, are somewhat stumbling into the finals here. Their last game or so wasn't as strong, I think, as some of their earlier season form. The Sharks have an excellent team. There's a lot of good players in there. Santi Videla, the fly half from Chile, I would have had him as, if World Rugby the chose their World Player of the Year from Tier 2 as well. He would
Hmm.
have been right in the running for that award because he had a fantastic year and he was a real part of why Chile has done so well and jumped up the rankings so far there. So Miami, I think, have some players. Obviously, Giuseppe Dutoy in that most recent game, 10 tackles, 13 passes. So they're actually running a lot of the play through him, which is, I think, good to see for Canada. Um, the Hounds, I mean, you've got Mason Flesh, who continues to have a solid season. That's going to be good for Canada. In the most recent game, 10 tackles and 5 defenders beaten. So both sides of the ball, he's doing well. Rumble, I believe, he's in the top 5 for turnovers won for the season, 20 turnovers there. So obviously he's doing well. Owaru, I think, is someone who's Canada will look to bring in and try and get a bit more game time because he's obviously got a pretty good game as well, high tackle rates. Um, so I'm actually picking Hounds v Sharks there.
All right, nice. I think I would. I know that the Free Jacks are keen for the three-peat, but again, I agree with you. I think they're if you compare this team to 23 and 24, it's not the same. I mean the main reason why is because they're not starting enough Canadians because that is how the MLR Championship goes. The more Canadians in your starting 15 and your match day 23, that's the team that wins. And unless they turn that around, I think it may be a stumble for the Free Jacks at the final hurdle. But yeah, let's move on to the West now, where we have the Utah Warriors up against the Seattle Seawolves, who narrowly just made it into the playoffs. I think it's incredible to think how close it was between them and San Diego. San Diego, the team that went 5-0 at the start of the season, was unable to make the playoffs. But if they had been in the East, they would have secured it. But that is the math that we are working with. That is what we are sorting out. So we have Utah versus Seattle, and we have Houston versus RFC Los Angeles. Ed, I'm going to throw it to you first. Who do you think's making it to the Western Conference Final?
Yeah, these are some tough ones to pick, I think. I mean, the Warriors playing well. You've obviously got Spencer Jones, who again, I think the Canadian midfield's looking pretty solid with the players that are actually getting good game time in MLR. Spencer Jones, obviously a very good, robust defender, good turnover player as well. But they also rely a lot on. They've got a lot of New Zealand players in there. I think Liam Coltman might be the only All Black playing in Major League Rugby at the moment, but he's also one of the top try scorers in the league as well. So their attacking maul is obviously going well. And yeah, their record there is obviously pretty good. Seawolves, Duncan Matthews, that guy is a freak. Top of the meters made for the whole season. You've got Divan Rousseau as well. So they've got some really strong attacking players there. And Ricard as well, their captain. They've got a strong loose forward trio there as well. So I think on balance, I'm going to go with the Warriors for that one. And then I think LA is bringing some form into the finals. Their record wasn't as good, but they've got a number of really strong Australian players. Bertrano at scrum half, alongside players like Meeks. Who else have they got here? Oh, Reese McDonald, who I just recently found out is actually from where I'm from in New Zealand. So go Reese. And Ben Houston, their captain, another Australian who didn't get much pro time in Australia, but he's had a really good season as well. So I think I'm going to predict an upset on that side and go with LA. LA v the Warriors.
All right then. And Jeff, who have you got for the Western Conference final?
I actually agree with Ed, and I would say the game I'm actually most excited to watch that I think could turn out to be the best game of the round will actually, I think, be the Houston LA game. I think they kind of have different styles. Like LA can seem to play that champagne rugby reasonably well, and they are kind of like what you said about the Sharks for the East. LA seems to be getting their act together for the most part, and I think they could upset Utah at home. Though I do have a feeling that's just going to be a bridge too far for Seattle, and I think Houston and Utah I think is also starting to play some good form as well.
One thing I'll say here, guys, is if the TMOs keep coming into the game like they've been doing, it's going to make for some nonsense rugby. Because I watched a lot of the highlights and the amount of times that the video refs are coming in to call ridiculous calls, the calls that shouldn't be called in. That's nonsense in my book.
And those are our picks for who is going to win in the playoffs for the MLR in 2025. And if you want to watch those games in Canada, you can do so for free on the Rugby Network. We also have the Premiership and URC finals available, and those will be on Sportsnet Plus. And it's not happening for a couple of weeks, but it has been announced that the British and Irish Lions games will be shown in Canada on DAZN. So just keep that in mind of all those games coming up. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out more as well as our written pieces on our website, therougerugby.ca. You can also find the podcast on Spotify and the video form on YouTube. To make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell notification, stay up to date with all our videos. We're also available across social media, including Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky, all at the Rouge Rugby. Jeff, where can people find you on social media? And Ed, where can people find you on social media? All right, easy enough. And you can find me across social media at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Well, that's where we're going to end this episode. Jeff, Ed, thank you once again for joining me, and thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Rouge Rugby Podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. We hope you can join us again next time.